Perfect. And in case you didn't catch that, we're recording this meeting from this point forward. So, so great. As part of our standing agenda for our quarterly meetings, we like to have Julie Mock of Elements Compost, also many other hats she wears as our liaison to the RC board, as well as our financial update, financial liaison, give us an update on our finances. So Julie, take it away.
Yeah, can you all see my screen now? I have to figure out how to get on the right tab. Oh gosh, sorry guys. There we go.
All right. Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, awesome. So just a real quick update on our budget and our financials for the COCC. In front of you, you've got our budget versus actuals. For the year, this is year to date. I just ran it today, and I'll drop an updated version of this into our COCC shared financials folder if you want to really spend a lot of time digging into the numbers. Overall, we're doing great. On the income side of things, we are under budget when it comes to our sponsorship revenue. We had budgeted $4,000, mainly bringing in sponsorships for the Recycle Colorado Summit and potentially for some of the trainings that we hosted this year. We have not met that budget. So if we have any sponsorship opportunities before the end of the year, that is one area where we could use folks' help generating a little bit more income. We are a little bit below budget also on events and COCC membership, but that is kind of made up for by an increase in the USCC membership share that we've received. So we, for every composter that's a part of the COCC, if they are also a member of USCC, then there's a lot of acronyms, apologies, the US Composting Council, we receive a portion of their membership dues to support our local councils. So if you are not a member of the US Composting Council and you can join, we'll receive some benefit from that as well. So that's where we're at on the income side. That's sort of balanced out by being under budget on expenses. So even though we're a little short on our projected income, we also haven't spent as much as we anticipated. A majority of that expected spending was for lobbying fees. We have that $5,000 that we had budgeted for lobbying that we have not used this year. And then we still will have some small expenses for marketing and other things. I don't think the t-shirts are in here, this $469. So we did purchase t-shirts, which wasn't in our original budget, but anyways, we're fairly on track and over what we projected as far as kind of our net revenue for the year. Any questions on the budget versus actual? Well, and then I'll just jump really quickly to, and again, this is a little bit of a cluttered report, but quarterly, Allie and I work together to do a kind of reconciliation and transfer of dollars into our COCC restricted account, which lives underneath Recycle Colorado's financial accounts. So at the beginning of the year, we had a little over $18,000 in that account. We're now up to $26,000 as of the end of Q2. There have been a few expenses in Q3 that aren't accounted for here, and those will come out in the next kind of reconciliation at the end of September. But overall, we've got a good chunk of funding, in the bank, and overall good financially. Any questions on our restricted fund?
I just had a quick question on the sponsorships for 2024. What potential interested parties, what would they be able to sponsor? What events do we have coming up, just so I can have on the back of my mind?
I'm going to stop you. We're going to talk about this later in the meeting, so we're going to cover this.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Julie. Anything to share from the RC side then, as our board liaison as well?
Oh, you put me on the spot with that one, Sandy.
Yeah, sorry about that. Well, I'm going to put some other people on the spot soon too. So
yeah. I don't think there's anything super pressing from a kind of board and administrative side of things. Lots happening with EPR and all kinds of other things on the Recycle Colorado side. But I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Rachel can correct me if I'm missing something. Thanks.
I don't know that you're missing something from the board side yet, but the policy council has a working group looking at potential organics, which actually Megan is the chair of that group. So that's still all in process, but just to be aware that there is potential looking at some sort of organics policy.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. And I think I did actually kind of put you down if we go a little further down into our agenda on our work plan and budget document around statewide advocacy. And I didn't, of course, ask you if you wanted to do this, and you certainly don't have to, but in Dan's, you're kind of stepping in a little bit for Dan, for us. So thank you for that. If there is anything you'd like to share around statewide advocacy besides what you just shared about Recycle Colorado, certainly please let us know. I think we're at that point on our agenda, but if not, we can move along too. So
I'm happy to share a little bit more. I feel odd because what I'm sharing is probably something Jace could say more about, or Megan being the chair of the working group, but the statewide organics management plan 2.0 was released this month, and there are policy recommendations in that document. If you don't have time to read it in detail, they're nicely laid out in a table with some descriptions after that. And that working group is looking at some of those, but there's a wide range of policy options from local to statewide and lots of different approaches. So really trying to sift through that. And it's definitely something that I think in the future, COCC could help think through. The process right now is that on the 5th of September, the policy committee will meet again. There'll be a presentation from this working group to that committee saying we think Recycle Colorado should do X, Y, or Z. And the policy committee will vote one way or another. Then that vote will be taken to the board for a final yes or no. Is that our policy priority moving forward in 2025? And it's possible that whatever the priority is let's do more networking, let's do more stakeholder engagement, it might not be a specific bill approach. So I'm going to call on Megan and Brandy and Jace and see if any of you have anything else you want to add to that.
awesome. Thanks, Rachel.
Yeah, I think that's a great summary. And I think we have identified, at least as the group, using mostly recommendations from the OMP, that we might be recommending more non-legislative policies compared to legislative for this next go round. And we are expecting a pretty large financial deficit in the next year's budget. So we kind of think that's probably a helpful approach. But if you are interested in learning more / sharing your feedback, we are meeting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. to finalize the subcommittee's recommendations. So put your name in the chat or your email in the chat, and I'm happy to include you because the more ideas and voices, the better. So yeah, but a great summary, I think.
And the deficit Megan is referring to is the state budget.
Statewide
that's not
budget.
Recycle Colorado. That's the state budget which will impact potentially everything the state does.
Yes.
Yes, as it does, for sure. Yeah, that's great. Anyone else involved in this want to speak up on it real quick before we move on? Give it that uncomfortable 3-second pause, and nobody's speaking up. So yeah, thanks to you both for sharing that. That's great news to hear, and we'll of course be looking forward to what comes out of that, so we can start deciding what to focus on as a COCC as well. So all right, Jamie, I think it looks like you're up to talk a little bit about the organic subcommittee proposal.
What they just talked about.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it. Basically, just so that everyone knows, there is a policy subcommittee for the composting part of policy. And that is what is being worked on to submit to the RC board on September 5th. So if there's any questions, you guys give us, tell us you want to be involved, and we'll invite you to, I think the next meeting's tomorrow, actually. Is that right, Megan? Yeah.
Sorry, I'm eating this giant salad, so I can't stay on camera. But yes, it's at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Very early, but that's the time that we found was good enough. It's hard to find time that works for everybody. So if anybody does want to join, or we can share the document, and like we're happy to take comments or feedback. And if there's a lot in the OMP. So obviously we're just trying to pick a couple things out that we think are most feasible for this next session.
Exactly. And so we just want to put something forth for Recycle Colorado to hopefully get behind.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments, or anything on that before we move on to the next thing? All right. Well, one thing I neglected to mention at the beginning of my introduction too is that I'm also our Legislative and Environmental Affairs Committee liaison to the USCC committee. That another one of those acronyms called LEAC, as you can see on the agenda. And a quick update from LEAC I can share right now. The committee's been working a little bit around changing its structure a bit and trying to be more effective in taking stances on positions. So a couple of the things that we've been working on is an actual restructuring proposal that will kind of help the LEAC become more proactive in taking stances and engaging with lobbyists about bills and issues and stances that come forward from the state level. So the whole idea is that the current structure of the LEAC now is that we're trying to figure out how to make it, first of all, more representative of the membership in terms of both compost manufacturers and affiliates, which is everyone who's not a compost manufacturer. But then also make sure that that is a standing committee that has voting rights. And then because we're also trying to be more proactive about building stances across the group, there's going to be another group called the State Legislative Subcommittee that will focus on state regulations, bills, and issues that will be summarized by this other group of people that will roll up to the LEAC for discussion and voting as needed. So we're trying to figure out a way just to be a little bit more streamlined and intentional about issues that come up at the state level. So then the USCC can take positions on these issues and policies and legislation and create briefs that can be added to a policy book through their website. The main stance that they're currently working on is the researching organics ban legislation across the country. And there will be more, and more I think will come up out of this new structure that the LEAC is trying to take on in order to streamline processes and make sure that we're hearing all that we need to hear from the state level as well. There's also congressional compost tours being scheduled. There's already 9 that have been initiated by USCC members. These are basically just invite your congressperson to come to your compost site and actually stand in a field and get a feel for what it is, and just a familiarity thing. It's a little bit of a PR thing, I think, for the Congress people as well. So that's one other thing that is being worked on right now. There's also a compost caucus that is an informal group of Congress people dedicated to supporting efforts to advance compost utilization, compost manufacturing, and organics recycling, collection, and education programs that lead to composting. And there's, I think, about 4 Congress folks that have already jumped on. And of course, our lovely Joe Neguse that we have here in our area is definitely in, and he was one of the first to join up. So let's see, what else do we have? Oh yeah, so the USCC also has recently brought on a new lobbying company. It's a company called Carpy and Clay, and they are mostly tracking the Farm Bill and Recycling and Composting Accountability Act. I don't have a really great update as for exactly where those 2 things stand right now. They're pretty meaty issues, as you might imagine, but we do have there are USCC lobbyists hard on the job working on that. So I know that was really just a whole lot all at once. So if anybody has any questions, definitely let me know, either now or later. So now I will try to figure out where we're at so I can move on.
Hey Sandy, what's the name of the other bill? It's the Farm Bill and the,
It is the Recycling and Composting Accountability Act.
thank you.
You're welcome. Got it. I could just put my notes right in there for you too, right?
It's right. Yeah, and whoever changed, yeah, if I'm missing something or I misspell something, I love it. Change it, please.
Yeah, right. We've got lots of eyes on this, so I think everybody
Yes.
has editing ability. So
Like, you guys, I'm kind of an aggressive note taker, so I hope you like it.
I love it. It's great. Thank you. Okay, so we're at the COTC now. Sean, I don't know if there was any kind of off-season updates from, I know that we had ours, or what you know about others going on. I know we're kind of volunteering you to speak now again, but
Oh,
would you like
that's
to say
okay.
something about it?
Yeah. So the next one will be in September in North Carolina. They do annually in North Carolina. Then after that, we've confirmed last week of October in Florida. So if anybody needs a tropical vacation in Florida and hasn't yet gotten their compost certification, that's a great way to justify trip to Florida in October, November. And then we should be slated for March of next year in California, but I'm not sure on the exact location of that one yet. That's just kind of a recurring one. I did ask about Colorado because I know that we have a goal to have annual trainings in Colorado. That is a big revenue generator for us, and just really great opportunity for us to continue to offer opportunities to get our local people trained up and knowledgeable on best practices. The Compost Foundation does not currently have one slated for 2025. That doesn't mean they can't be convinced, but they do have us kind of on their sites for 2026. So if anybody feels strongly that they want me to push for next year, and we have a big team of people that are going to help make that happen, then I would be happy to make that push. But if we feel like we're overwhelmed with everything else going on, then I would say we should definitely push for the 2026, and it doesn't hurt to start thinking about that early. So that's my update now. But if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thanks, Sean. Lots going on. COTC everywhere.
Sean, I do have a question for those of us who are new to this call. Could you just say a little bit about what that training is, and would it make sense to try and wrap that together with other training or education of a bigger, what is compost, looking at maybe some of these things that are in the Organics Management Plan 2.0 to bring more stakeholders together, or is it a totally separate event?
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you. You're right. I shouldn't just say things and assume people know what I'm talking about. So the COTC that's always in our notes is the Compost Operations Training Course. It is conducted by the Compost Research and Education Foundation, which is a nonprofit that promotes the advancement of compost education and awareness and research. And it is one way that you could get your credits it's a 40-hour training course. That's a full week long, and Monday through Friday. And afterwards you get a certification of completion that can be used for the USCC's a certified compost operations manager certification, or a certified compost professional certification. So the difference is that a manager has to also have experience in the field working on an active compost facility, and a professional has to have experience in the field working in the compost industry. So it's just a way to help get a further certification and really connect with other people in the industry on best practices of managing a compost site and understanding the compost processes, everywhere from feedstock selection and mixing and processing and types of composting and methods of composting, into regulations and permitting and water and odor and policies and regulations, and then to selling your compost and creating a good product and knowing your market, and also other things you have to think about like fire and floods and everything that comes up with managing compost facility. So it's not for, I would say it's not really for somebody who's just like dabbling into backyard composting, because it's a pretty intensive week-long training. The more if you have a little bit of experience under your belt, it kind of helps to understand what we're talking about for a full week of talking about compost operations, but it's not required. Like if you're going to start a compost facility, or if you're in the compost industry as a consultant or an engineer, it would be a great way to learn more about the compost industry and connect with people who are actually composting and what the big challenges are for composters and what the creative solutions are that are happening around just around the world. We have people from all over the world that attend. There's a limit of 42 people per class, and almost every single class, as far as I've been involved for the last 3 years, has been sold out. So you want to get in soon if there is one coming up in a location that you really want to go to. So to answer your question, it's not necessarily like a networking event, because it is a week-long investment, and it's it is a financial investment as well, but it doesn't mean that it's only for people running compost facilities. I think all stakeholders within composting, especially regulators, consultants, anyone kind of building a community plan or wanting to be involved in compost on a community level, I think it's valuable for. And when we bring it to Colorado, we've been trying to kind of make one, there's a networking night where we kind of all get together. So when we do bring it to Colorado specifically, we do try to open up that networking night as an opportunity for other people from our industry to come and network in that space as well. So there is one night where we would like to continue to expand that opportunity. And that's kind of more on the chapter to take the lead on that when it does come here. Does that give a good overview? And is there any other questions?
Yeah, I would just like to add really quick, Jace, if you can touch on this, it's the COTC is one of the courses that is going, or there's going to be a regulation on someone being trained on site. If you can expand on that, Jace, thank you.
Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah.
Yeah, so all class 3s, class 2s, and most class 1 compost facilities, so most of your permitted classes of facilities are now going to be required to have some kind of certified operator training course for at least one person on site. Could be anybody. And by on site, you know, if you have multiple sites, you're the owner, operator, that's fine. And yes, the COTC course certainly qualifies for that. You just need to have a certificate of completion from attending that course, which Sean mentioned. I believe that goes into effect next year. I'll double check in a second, put it in the chat.
Thanks, Jace.
All right, awesome. I think in the interest of time, because I know that Clinton has to bolt at 3 o'clock, that we might skip over right now the chapter call and go into some USCC updates, Clinton, and then maybe you can go into your other updates as well, and I'll give you the next section to do your thing.
Yeah, there's a lot I didn't notice my name was on so much.
Yeah, I know. Clinton, take it away. You have the next however many minutes. So
I just wanted everybody to know on the call how awesome Sandy is at making sure things happen. So thank you, Sandy. You're crushing it. Love it. Yeah, so I'll just go down the list quick, guys. USCC conference, and I've been trying to drop in hyperlinks for everybody so you can dive into this information later, make it easy. But yeah, USCC conference is in Phoenix, Arizona this year, 27th through the 29th. So they are still, I think, accepting applications for speakers. I'm on the committee that gets the opportunity to read through submittals, and there's some amazing talks that have been submitted. I'm really excited about this year. I can't share, but of course there's some really great stuff coming down the pipeline for this year. Let's see here. Sorry, Megan, you're typing at the same time, so I gotta keep here. So the Marketing Development Committee, something new to talk about that. I think I spoke to you guys on this before. The ASLA conference is in October. Sally Brown, Ron Alexander, and Jacob, I can't think of Jacob's last name. He's from the mushroom composter, St. Valley. I think it's St. Valley. They're all speaking on climate action around compost application to the landscape architects, National Association for Landscape Architects, which is really great. It's in their climate action program. I put a hyperlink in there for you to check that out. STA certified compost. We're diving into all the new branding. I think some people have seen some of the new branding. All that will be is live and will be required to be changed on all websites and updated in 2025. There'll be a grace period through 2025, but you'll have all access to getting that updated. And they're also diving into an app development we're currently working on that would be specific to residential compost use, and showing how to read an STA certified compost analytic data sheet. And what does that mean? Simplifying it down to, residential level, and what's pH, what's organic matter, why is it important, how much do I use in my yard, and like really simplify, like kind of having like a yardage calculator, to based on how much you need, but what happens when you put it in the soil? What's the benefit, and what does it look like? So that's really cool. We're working on something like that. Hold on. Everything keeps moving around. Sorry, Megan. I'm trying to stay in spot here.
I'm sorry, you're talking, you have so much good stuff. I'm just trying to
Oh.
record it all.
Okay. Let me calm down here. Sorry, everybody. I apologize. So yeah, so that's some cool stuff we're working on the Marketing Development Committee. If anybody's ever interested in being a part of that, you have interest in marketing and community outreach, in specifying, looking at analytics, all that kind of stuff, please reach out. We'd love to have you on the committee. It's a lot of fun. USCC webinars, guys. Lots of webinars come down once a month. Take advantage of those webinars. As part of the COCC, you get to view those. Really great ones coming down the pipeline. Okay, that should cover that for a minute. Wait, Sandy, did you mention the $4.2 million grant from the USDA that the USCC got for compost application studies in Colorado, Washington, and California, I believe it is?
I did
you
not
mention
bring
that?
that up yet, but I feel like that there is.
It's in there?
I think Sean asked to mention that. Is that the
Okay.
same one, Sean?
Yeah, I can talk
Okay.
about that.
You'll talk about that later. Okay, great. Just want to make sure that that comes up. That's a huge deal.
Yeah.
That's awesome. International Compost Awareness Week is May 4th through the 10th of 2025. They just opened up the poster contest, which is really exciting. They put out a international poster contest every year. Over 700 people submit a poster design for this International Compost Awareness Week, and they have to narrow that all the way down to one. It's pretty cool. So again, great opportunity to share the poster and then check that out. They introduced a bookmark contest this year, which looks really cool for younger aged students or kids to submit artwork. They always theme it. They'll have a theme. I don't remember what the theme is. I forgot to look. There's always a theme based on what the poster should be talking about. Again, really cool. I love that. A1 Organic sponsors that every year. So I think Eco Products does as well. And it's just a great awareness opportunity to build awareness around compost application, use, and organics recycling. Okay. Other
Hey, Clinton,
updates.
can I jump in? Especially since COCC meets quarterly, I know in the past there's been like subcommittee groups trying to do some sort of like events or communications around events for iCall. And so maybe that's something we put on the agenda for next meeting, but maybe in the meantime, like if anyone wants to do like host a compost, awareness event, education campaign, maybe there's something we can do collaboratively, especially with more notice. So just hit that. idea.
Early February, they'll do a large educational webinar talking about how to get engaged with International Compost Awareness Week. And it's usually all the statewide composting groups that get together and then start figuring out building plans and looking at other things. So anybody on the call that really wants to dive in and do some grassroots work, and it's kind of like one of those opportunities to do what you want to do, or let's have some fun. It's a good cause and it's a good time. Yes, CAA Circular Alliance, so Circular Action Alliance, I always get that wrong. Can I share my screen on this one?
Sure.
That'd be okay. Sorry, I didn't realize I was going to talk about so much, but that's okay. Let's see if this works here. And Liz Chapman, are you still on the call? Can't tell. Are you still here? Anybody answer that question?
I
Is
am
Liz on?
here. I am
Okay,
here.
good.
I am listening. Yes.
Okay, great. So Liz, I'm gonna just kind of skim through this on that last workshop that we did where they're looking for feedback. But
Yeah.
if you have anything to add, please don't hesitate to add at the end if I miss anything. Sound good?
Yes.
Great. Okay, guys. So just what I do want to share, and I'm gonna skim through this pretty quickly, but this is specific to the Colorado EPR, and just in case not everybody's familiar with the Colorado, sorry, apologize. There's a lot of information here. Here you go. So just real quick, the extended producer responsibility is a policy approach that shifts financial responsibility from recycling and life management of a product from local governments and taxpayers to the producer. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the EPRs happening. On our call, compost manufacturers, we're talking about compostables. Compostables are in the EPR. So recently, the PRO, who's CAA, Producer Responsibility Organization, has been having, and I'm going to just, again, you guys have to dive in and get some more education here on this, but they've been having sessions to talk about gathering more information from our industry on how compostables should work within the EPR. Some very important feedback that they need that came up in their recent, hold on, there's a lot here, guys. So what I'm asking you guys to do is to dive in and on the website, and I'll give you a QR code here, and I put the link in the notes there. But they're asking for some information specific to compostables that are a covered material. And some of the information they're looking to obtain is, how do you track contamination at an organics recycling processor? How do you observe it? How do you track it? How do you quantify it? What does that process look like? They're also looking at how should the funds be dispersed to a compost manufacturer. So there's some information on that they've came up with different plans and different ideas. So anybody that's in this industry that's a compost manufacturer that's potentially accepting compostables or considering it, it'd be really valuable for you to provide some information and some feedback to CAA. And again, you can download this information sheet that I'm showing you right now off of the website. Here's some of the potential funding infrastructure approaches. And what I would do is get on there and take a minute to read through this and take a look at what they're suggesting, and then provide some feedback through the survey that's online. We have till September, I want to say September 7th on this one. Here's the thing. Here's the information. I'm talking about measuring contamination. How should they do it? Do you guys have suggestions? Best management practice, best way to do it? All of this is great feedback for them to use to consider and look at what's going to work best for all of our industry. Again, there's a lot here, guys. So please get engaged and provide feedback. And let me find the date for you. Oh, there you go. Sorry, September 13th. There's the QR code, so you can scan it, or the links on the notes. But this one's very specific. This feedback session was very specific to compostables and how it fits into the EPR. So very important in our industry and something everybody should take a minute to kind of learn more about. And if you have some feedback, please, please, please provide it. Liz, anything else I should have added there?
No, I think the important part is to go over those slides and questions that come up for you to submit those questions. One of the things that this group could do is the Colorado Compost Council could submit comments and questions as a group, as an entity. That would not be to replace individual responses, but it would be additive. So for example, the open market municipalities are very concerned about how this is going to work in their systems. So we've had an internal Recycle Colorado meeting where they shared their concerns, and then I compiled that into a singular document, and we submitted that to CAA on behalf of our members. And so COCC could do the same on behalf of your members, in addition to individuals also responding to this survey. And in particular, one of the questions that they had was that I thought was really interesting is how to reimburse, how to fund compost with the relatively small amount of money that they will be collecting. One of their suggestions was to somehow work with other grant funding programs and combine forces, or if not combine forces, make it complementary. And I'm curious how composters think that would work. Would that be a good thing? Would that not work? It seems on the face of it, it would be simpler to make an application to a single entity, but I don't know that that's going to be possible. There's also the idea of if you get Y dollars from X grant, could you put that into your application to a Z grant, right? Could the grants be contingent upon receiving money from a different granting institution? And then to your question, Clinton, I know Clinton and I went down a rabbit hole at the advisory board meeting with the whole contamination thing. And based on my understanding of how compost operations work, clearing out contamination and identifying contamination is different in a compost situation at a compost processor than it is at a material recovery facility. And in a big way, part of why it's so different is there are very few compost processors that are associated with a landfill. We have a few, but not many. Most of the material recovery facilities are associated with a landfill. So that makes the whole cost of dealing with contamination very different. And I don't know that, I don't know what the answer is, but I think it's important that compost processors share those differences and concerns with, at this stage in the game, as they're developing the program, it's important to paint a picture for them about why it's different, how it's different.
Exactly, like the nuances involved in the process in the hall, it's very important.
And the other thing that I would put out, just to remind everyone, whatever program plan is decided upon, it is not etched in stone.
Yeah.
This whole system is designed to be iterative and evaluated as it progresses. And so if there's stuff in 2026 that doesn't work, then there's room in 2027 to change it. And then so on and so forth.
But just, yeah, thanks, Liz. That was great. And just like anything, the more information they have up front, the better. So, and that comes from us.
Clinton, Brian's hand is up. Brian, what's on your mind?
Oh, just make sure I don't have a cup. I got to make sure I don't have a cup in my hand. Hold on. I have no cups around me today.
Yeah.
Hey, I just want to second, that urgency. I think that anybody who does any kind of composting understands what they're talking about, right? Yeah, it blew my mind that they were like, we only want to know what is compost food packaging and non-compost food packaging. And they're like, we don't think that any other types of contamination are important. I think that all of us know otherwise.
Yeah.
As I made in the comments, I would encourage anybody who has the ability to look at all the EPR sessions and make comments.
It's great. Like the education one is really great. And guys, you can go to the link on there, which at the Colorado consultation, and that'll show what has happened with notes from what has happened, and then also what's up and coming, because there's a lot more consultation that is happening in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So if you have the time and opportunity, get in there and let them know what's going on.
Awesome.
Okay.
Time checking. I know you got to go, Clinton, but can you say
I
a
know.
word or two
I'm going to
about
wrap it
the-
up. I'll
Yeah.
wrap it up. I'll get it done.
Awesome.
Just for you, Sandy.
You're the best.
Okay, so we dove into the EPR. Busy. So improving the circularity of Compostables Future Search event. I'm on the steering committee for this, and I put a link on there that has a web page that explains everything that's going on. This is an event that's happening late September, and registration will close September 7th. So if you're really interested in attending and can attend, please get signed up immediately. The seats will fill, and it is an invite, has been an invite only event, and it's opened up a little bit now. What it is, in a very short explanation, is it's a 3-day event that you need to be there all 3 days, and it's a big time commitment, but it's diving in to a strategic session. It's going to be like 20 hours worth of work of really looking at the entire supply chain, everything involved with compostables associated with food serviceware, plus some others, and looking to figure out how can we move forward in the next 2 to 3 to 4 years with some plans to see if this is the right direction to go, or maybe this is not the right direction to go. It's not just one-sided. It's everybody coming to the table to talk about this, and like 14 different stakeholder groups. There's some work sessions that have been happening up to this event. There's 2 more that are left. There's 14 of them. You can get them off of YouTube, and they're right at that main link you can find. The USCC has dedicated a landing page to this event. They're part of it as well. So is CMA, so is BPI, so is Eco Products. I see Megan right there. There's a lot of people that are attending. Liz, are you officially going now? Oh, that is awesome. That's so great, Liz. I'm so happy to hear that. There's a lot of, so guys, there's a lot of heavy lifting or heavy hitters from across the country that are attending this event to take a deep dive into this. It's really kind of cool, first of its kind, but it's not a conference. It's not I said event, it's not an event. It's strategic planning to really get boots dirty and figure this out. Which is, it's really cool. I'm excited about it. So any questions, please reach out to me immediately, because the time window is shortening. Any major companies on this call, I'm going to do a shameless plug. Any major companies on this call that would love to sponsor this event, we would love to have you. It would be great to have a heavy hitting sponsorship, because that would just be really awesome. Okay, I'm moving on from that. Gosh, you gave me a lot, Sandy. Where's the next?
I think
think
that
that's
might
it.
be done for you, Clinton.
Well, there was one, the BPI Summit, Berkeley. Okay, I'm speaking at that, but I guess I don't need to bring that up. That's the only reason why that one was there. I'll plug that
Sure.
one real quick.
Okay.
I am flying out to Berkeley to speak at the BPI Certified Compostables event. It's me and Pierce from Dirt Hugger, Neil Egger from California. He's part of the Recycling or California Compost Coalition group. And we're there to speak about the challenges with compostables in the stream and why we chose to not accept them. Just to continue to help provide that information and get that out of the challenges we face and the benefits and challenges. It's both, it's not just one. So, yeah, I gotta go. Thanks, guys. That was a lot.
Thanks for all of that, Clinton. You're a
Thanks,
very,
Clinton.
very integral part of this group. So appreciate all of that.
Oh, I appreciate
Um,
you guys all.
and-
You're all fantastic.
So I promise we're going to get back to the upper part of the agenda that we skipped. But we might as well just finish off this section while we're at it. So Sean, would you like to just talk about the grant award real quick? We need to make plenty of time for our presentations here too. So
Yeah, yep, I'll be quick. So, last year, the US Compost Council and Zero Foodprint went for a grant from the USDA asking for $4.8 million to test compost application in Colorado, Washington, and California. They were awarded that grant for 4.4 million. So still a lot of what they asked for. And so what the point is that we have a lot of information about suggested application rates and methods for like the east part of the United States, but we don't have a lot of recommendations for our dry, arid climates out here in the West. And so we will be doing some compost trials with that money and looking at different types of compost and application rates on agricultural lands. And so we will be using Colorado generated compost, and we'll be looking for agricultural producers who want to participate in that study. So if anybody is knows people that are interested in being involved, I can be a contact for that. Right now we probably won't even start those trials till next year. They're kind of just wrapping their brain around how to go about doing it. They have all of the methods and stuff figured out, but it's just kind of implementing and getting everybody on the same page. So I do know that there will be trials in the Front Range using A1 Organics, and there will also be trials on the Western Slope and in Central Colorado. So yeah, if anybody has any other questions or wants to be involved in that, they can just reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat for that.
awesome. Was just going to ask you to do that. Perfect. Okay, cool. Let's get our Recycle Colorado update, if there is one, from Liz and or Allie. I think there's a couple things on the list there. And we are running a little short on time, so let's keep it short if we could, please. So,
Sorry, I don't have the agenda in front of me.
oh, no,
I
that's
have to
okay.
dig that back up. The one thing that, in addition to just hammering home the point that Clinton just made in terms of giving your feedback to CAA in regards to the process of developing the program plan, I would encourage everybody to do that. If there's anything I can do on behalf of Recycle Colorado, happy to do that. But I think it would be the most meaningful if a cohesive series of comments and questions came from the Colorado Composting Council. I think that would be the most impactful, rather than just me as recycling. And our annual meeting is coming up. Our annual meeting is September 20th in Boulder. We're gonna be hosted at the Boulder Recycling Center. We will have tours of the recycling center, and there's tours on September 20th, which is a Friday. On Thursday, September 19th, there's also an optional tour of Green Sheen, which is not necessarily of great interest to the folks that are focused solely on compost, but there will be a tour offered of the Green Sheen facilities on Thursday. And then Friday, we're going to tour the Boulder Recycling Center, their hazardous material collection, and the EcoCycle Center for hard to recycle materials. And then at the end, we're going to have a happy hour and a thrifty white elephant celebration where you can bring those gems that you get from the thrift store, and then we can steal them from each other while we have a few locally brewed beers or soda. So that is the most, it's the biggest announcement in terms of what Recycle Colorado has got going on next. We are looking at planning the summit. The summit is happening in June, the first week of June in Grand Junction. You look at the news, look for the newsletter calling for volunteers if you want to help plan that. And once again, I ask if COCC wants to have a dedicated track. Certainly, if that's what you guys want to pursue and you have the bandwidth to do the work to make it happen, we want to make that space for you, but you also don't have to. And we will still have compost as part of our programming. Then the final thing, since we've got some Greater Colorado folks on the line, there is a council that was a merging of the Rural Policy Council and the Western Slope Council into a Greater Colorado Council. So those of you outside of the Front Range, I would encourage you to get involved in the Greater Colorado Council. Part of the motivation for making that into a bigger council is to make the scope more rural and mountain Colorado rather than limiting it to the Western Slope. I think that's it, except I'll pause and see if Allie wants to jump in with anything.
I think you got it all. Good work, Liz. I think I put all the links in the chat, but if I missed anything, just feel free to message me.
Yeah, thanks. Wow, we are a busy group. There is a lot of stuff just going on all the time. Wow, a little blown away. Anyhow, and I really appreciate our special guests' patience while we go through all of this. There's one more short section to hit that I promise, and I know that various of our team here want to talk about this for sure, but let me go back and find my section. So one of the other basic things that we do as the Colorado Composting Council is participate in a quarterly chapters call, it's called. It's one of the requirements that we as a state chapter of the USCC are required to do. And so Jamie and I attend typically every quarter. And this last one that we had was mostly around ideas for fundraising. And we had pretty good discussion about that at our last leadership team meeting. And I know a couple of the folks at that meeting were pretty excited to bring some of these ideas forward and possibly create a committee around fundraising ideas for the COCC. So everybody can see in the notes what those ideas were. I didn't know, Jamie, if you wanted to add anything or if anybody else that was pretty excited about this wants to talk for maybe just a couple of minutes on this before we jump into presentations.
Just that there's so many options. However, the majority of us are very, very busy. So if anyone has an idea and the capacity to potentially do something with any of these ideas, that would be awesome. And so just let us know if you have any, ideas on how to take anything further. Otherwise we can, hopefully work with Liz and do something at the summit next year, but obviously there's going to be more immediate need for funding based on our budget reading from earlier. So just let us know.
All right, did anyone else want to jump in and talk about these ideas that we talked about during the leadership meetings, which of course everyone is welcome to attend as well. And I think that's where a lot of the meat of the work around a committee perhaps for fundraising might come from. And I also think it'll be important that we talk more about CAA feedback as a COCC group per Liz's encouragement too. So those are a couple of things I've already noted for our next meeting for the smaller group. In the meantime, anything else before we introduce our fabulous guest speakers?
I just want
Go ahead, Ellie.
Okay, really quick. I know Kimby joined. I don't remember if she talked about the BPI conference or event coming up.
I think that Clinton hit on it, but Kimby,
Okay.
we're happy to hear from you on it as well.
I literally joined 3 days ago, so I don't have that much information, but I know that I think something was sent to I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
No, it's quite all right. Clinton's going to be a speaker there, so he shared some information on that too.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And it is September 10th through 12th. I added that.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you.
Alex just sent that to me, so I want to be sure he touched on it. But I think that's it.
Okay, Evan, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I was just going to quickly bring up one of the fundraising ideas that was voiced in regards to Colorado Gives Day, since that might be one of the next big opportunities to raise some funds before the new year. I've done some work in the past for the Grow House here in Colorado, and it was like a record-setting year for them. Not to say it was entirely the video work that I did, but from what I understand, video is pretty powerful in getting people to understand. There's a lot of different organizations that sign up for Colorado Gives Day, but not a lot of people will read 80 pages of bullet points. So if there was any type of content that's already been captured, if anyone has a Dropbox folder, Google Drive links, I imagine these are kind of floating amongst many members, but if we could make an effort to consolidate it, I'd be willing to step up and edit a video that, you know, kind of encompasses what we do and see if that could help. So I just want to throw that out there before it becomes a time crunch.
That's
Nice.
awesome. Thank you.
Two questions, Evan. When is Colorado Gives Day? Is that like Black
December
Friday type
10th.
thing? December 10th. Thank you. Okay. And I know Eco Products, we have a lot of like B-roll from composters, interviewing composters, a lot of material from A1 specifically, but like a lot cover about contamination, the importance of keeping contamination out. So I'd love to sidebar with you and can share some of that.
I would love that. Yeah. I also have a lot of content working with A1 myself, but yeah, I guess I didn't know how much of that they would green light. So I guess I just wanted to start the conversation now and see what we could come up with. It doesn't need to be a super long video, but you know, it's hard to make something without, or rather make something out of nothing. So sounds like there's at least something, which is good.
And it would be good to get film from all over Colorado, right? I think there always is a lot of attention on A1 since they're our largest composter, but there's so much happening around the state. It would be good to highlight
I have
everybody.
some footage I can share too.
Woohoo. All right, cool. Thanks.
So if you guys could check in offline on that, that'd be awesome. And we'll and just keep us posted for sure. And we'll see what next steps we need to take on that.
Sounds great.
Awesome. All right. Thanks all. Without further ado, so sorry for the delays, but Rachel, I believe you're up first on our presentations here. Thanks so much for being willing to talk about this topic with us.
Sure. I'm gonna try and share my screen here. Y'all see that mess of a screen?
Mhm.
All right. Okay, so just real quickly, wanted to let y'all know that EcoCycle and the Closed Loop Partners had worked together on a toolkit that we're really excited has been released this year. This month. And I don't know if you can see all the other Zoom stuff on top of it. The toolkit is really intended for municipalities and jurisdictions to use to figure out how to expand composting infrastructure, how to navigate policy, how to work through contracts with haulers, and how to do engagement. So there's the 4 main chapters of the toolkit, and it's really intended to be a very hands-on resource. If there's, I'm showing you specific pages from the toolkit, so that's what's on my screen right now. Like this is kind of one path towards potential organics programming. Obviously, every municipality is going to take a slightly different path, but it outlines how a municipality might think through it. So really the intent would be whether it's a staff person or an elected official that's really interested in composting, to look at, use this tool as a way to gain support from others and move composting and organics diversion along. I just love this. Since EcoCycle was involved, we obviously highlighted a number of Colorado case studies. There are case studies from all over the country, as well as links to specific resources that can be used. But we, of course, made sure that we highlighted great cases of compost and policy and partnerships all throughout the state. This one happens to be on Summit County and all the work that I will say you all, because I know there's a couple of you in here from Summit County, have done on waste diversion, including compost. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight, there's links now in the notes, and I'll put them in the chat when I stop sharing my screen. As part of this toolkit, our comms team created customizable materials that can be used for education and outreach, to be able to just have a very consistent look. Any of you who are familiar with EcoCycle materials, you'll say, hey, that looks like EcoCycle's work, because it is. But they are intended to be downloaded, customized, used for free from this toolkit. So there's signs, stickers, and tags. They, have this look, very, very familiar, I'm sure, to many of you. And that's it, unless you all have questions, and I will put these links in the chat as well.
Thanks, Rachel. That was great.
Yeah, super helpful. If I can drop your presentation in the chat if you want me just to do that, and then all the links will be live for people there. If that's easier.
I don't know if they'll be live from the
Gotcha.
presentation, but
Gotcha.
I'll put them in right now.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I downloaded the set of compost signs from there the other day, and just deciding how I want to use those. So that's awesome. Thanks for those resources. Okay. Moving along, then Sean is going to come back with us and talk a little bit about compost tea and alternative soil amendments, which will be a great lead in to our star of the show, Lisa Wynn, who is here to talk us about soil health programs in Colorado.
Hi, sorry, I don't know how my lighting is here. So would it, Lisa, do you want me to go before or after you? Did you guys strategically want me to go first, or would it be better to learn about soil health and then?
Jamie and I actually thought about that a little bit, but you guys can decide. Whoever wants to, whoever you think it flows better, go for it.
I don't have a strong preference, Sean. Mine is pretty broad in general. So if you were gonna go really in depth with soil carbon amendments, you could go after me. I'll try to make it quick, or it doesn't matter.
No, maybe you should go first, and then and you have 30 minutes, so take your time, and then I'll just wrap it up at the end. Does that sound good?
Sure. Feel free to go a little shorter if you want, Lisa, too. But thanks so much for being here.
I will try to be quick about it and not eat up a ton of time. So do you guys see my screen? Okay, presentation map?
Yep.
Okay,
looks
cool.
good.
So yeah, hi everyone. My name's Lisa. I'm the Eastern Coordinator for Department of Ag, and I'll talk to you a little bit about the Colorado Soil Health Program. So I'm gonna kind of start with an overview of the program, broad structure of it, before I narrow into probably what everyone is most interested in, which is compost and soil carbon amendments. So the program is really focused on soil health. So these are the 5 soil health principles, and a 3-year-long program, which is actually implemented through our partner conservation districts and eligible entities, really tries to promote practices kind of tied or related to these soil health principles. So producers that enroll basically enroll a field of their choice and commit to implementing one new management practice related to soil health. In exchange for implementing this practice, they get technical assistance, financial assistance, and they get a few other benefits throughout the program, including some free soil tests, a soil moisture monitoring system, some market opportunity, kind of tapping into this network of other producers that are enrolled in the program. So just for some broad overview of our program. So we kind of run the whole gambit of who is enrolled in our program. We have people who are irrigated, of all different types of irrigation, flood, drip, pivot, We also have a decent amount of dryland producers, and we've got a pretty decent spread of all different types of cropping systems. So there's that one of the advantages of our program is that it's very flexible what kind of practice you choose, and that is certainly communicated to our enrollees, as enrollees of so many different flavors and diverse systems have enrolled. Sorry, I'm recovering from a cough. Okay, so one of the things that we really want to focus on when we enroll producers into this program is what kind of resource concerns they have. So we want to know what are some of the issues they face, some of the challenges that they have related to their operations. So I don't think it's a big surprise that the #1 resource concern in this state is related to water. Everybody cares about water. But there's also tons of other resource concerns that people have and really want to address. So kind of based off of these resource concerns, we try to match producers to some practices that we think they might be interested in. So this screenshot here is like a list of different practices that is eligible in our program for producers to enroll under, for us to cost share with, for them to implement. Really quickly, we cost share at a 50% one-to-one match with the rate of $75 an acre. We have a $1,000 minimum and $5,000 maximum per year. So each year, a producer accrues expenses related to whatever practices that they choose, and then they submit these expenses for us to cost share at the end of each year. So I'm sure you guys have all noticed that one of these practices is 336, soil carbon amendment. These numbers are the NRCS numbers, but I do want to stress that unlike NRCS, we are not as constrained about what exactly soil carbon amendment entails. So for us, sorry, I'm running through all of these. Oops. So for us, soil carbon amendment can encompass compost itself, peas, extracts, manure, biochar. And the main requirement for producers in our program to cost share, for us to cost share on this practice, is that they need a soil test done on the enrolled field, as well as some analysis of the applied amendment. So if it's compost that they bought, they need to ask the company for some certificate of analysis, or they can get their own test done on it, and same for everything else. Once that requirement is met, it's pretty much open to the producer what they want to claim. So they can claim the cost of the amendment. If it was compost itself, they can claim the time and labor that they spent putting it on their field. If they had to, pay a trucking fee to have it delivered, or if they drove themselves, they can count that mileage. And then any other materials related to the practice. So, if they wanted to purchase a couple textbooks about compost and like best methods of application, if they wanted to buy a microscope so that they could prepare some soil samples to see what's going on, etc. So we try really hard in this program to keep it really broad for the producer, because we know producers are of all varying levels in their familiarity with compost and amending their soil. So, from educational things to the actual cost for the implementation, we want to be able to cost share with producers on it. What do I have next? Okay, so this program, like I mentioned, is 3 years long, and we're just about wrapping up our year 1 now. Our crop our years run from October to September. So there's just about a month and a half left in year one. So we're just starting to see what producers are really choosing for their practices. So when all of our producers, about 250 of them enrolled, soil carbon amendment was one of the most popular. I mentioned before that we keep our program pretty flexible, so we don't force producers to implement all practices that they express interest in. We kind of make like a rolling list, and then when they submit their reimbursement forms, that's when we actually get to see what they chose and what kind of expenses were related to the implementation of that. So I don't have like hard numbers for you guys about how many of the 250 enrollees actually implemented some sort of soil carbon amendment, as we're still just starting to get those reimbursement forms back. But it is a very popular practice. We've got tons of questions about it. And of the handful of reimbursement forms that we have received, a good number of them do claim compost, extracts, manure, stuff like that. So there's a lot of challenges faced by producers in their implementation of their practice. So I will say for compost specifically, there's a lot of different things. So probably the number one thing that I hear from producers is just finding an access point to source compost. As I mentioned, I'm the Eastern coordinator. I have a Western slope counterpart. A lot of the producers that I talk to out on the Eastern Plains, they don't have a local compost facility nearby. A lot of them also will source their compost from one state over in Kansas, because they're closer to Kansas than they are to the Front Range, where there are more compost facilities. So that's been a big struggle of like, maybe they're interested, but they don't have, a place that they can go to get compost. Another challenge that producers face is kind of like a general lack of knowledge. Compost can be very confusing, and a lot of producers still get tripped up in distinguishing compost as a soil carbon amendment versus a fertilizer. So just understanding the different benefits of compost is something that can be a barrier for producers. There's also tons of different types of compost, and I think a lot of producers get overwhelmed kind of quickly when they start digging into what kind of compost they want to put on their field, if they want something fungally dominant or biocomplete, or whatever many other flavors of compost are out there. Scalability is another big thing. A lot of our producers farm on hundreds of acres, thousands of acres. They don't have the right equipment, and they find it a big struggle to source the equipment so that they can scale up for their operations. Some of our producers are also ranchers on native range. They don't have the right equipment to get in there to apply compost. And then that kind of feeds into that technical knowledge of like, how much compost should I put on? What's the rate? How often should I apply compost, right? There's all of these different aspects of this practice that producers can quickly feel overwhelmed by, which prevents them from implementing the practice. Producers also, this is all anecdotal. Producers also report time and labor to be a big barrier. Farmers are busy. They're trying to grow a crop. They're trying to produce their commodity. Asking them to implement compost applications on their field when they don't 100% know the benefits or know maybe necessarily what they're doing is a big ask. And that can also definitely be a barrier. And something that I thought was kind of interesting was a lot of producers that I've talked to that are not interested in compost or doing soil carbon amendment for their new practice. They're not interested in it because they say they've tried it before and it didn't work. So, you know, maybe a few years ago, they put some compost down and they didn't notice any difference in their yield, in their soil resiliency, you know, in a soil test that they took later on after they applied the compost. So they didn't really see any benefit from it. So they're not interested in trying it. So all of this is to say there's a lot of different barriers to this specific practice being implemented. And in our program, we're trying to address these barriers, whether they're social, financial, educational, technical. The first step really is identifying for different producers what their barriers are. And we really want to meet producers where they are. We are not a prescriptive program. We're not trying to force all producers enrolled to implement soil carbon amendment if they are not interested. But we do want to identify what kind of barriers might be preventing them from being interested, and see if we can kind of try to address those barriers. So some of the ways that we're trying to tackle these barriers, first and foremost, we've got some regional field staff to help with producers throughout the program. So that's some of our staff in the field installing a data logger. It was a beautiful day, and these field specialists, you know, they're truly agronomists. They really know about, you know, specific practices. They really know how to talk to producers about implementing practices, but they also serve as a conduit to connect producers to more resources. So if a producer is interested in learning more about compost, you know, their first point of contact are these field specialists who will come out and do a field visit, walk the field with them, see what kind of resource concerns or challenges they're facing, and really be able to kind of like consult or just foster a discussion with the producer about what kind of barriers they're facing and what kind of resources would help address those barriers. We also host webinars / info sessions every 2 weeks now with our partners. Some of them are definitely producer facing, and we really try to promote educational information about all the different practices that are eligible for us to cost share on in our program. Sometimes we'll have guest speakers like Sean, who spoke at one of these webinars to talk about soil health and compost, to really kind of get people thinking, but then also really provide those like network opportunities of, you know, like if you want to learn more, reach out to Sean or reach out to this other company or reach out to, you know, this agronomist, right? So really trying to build that community network so that producers can feel like they've got autonomy to reach out, to tap into a network of resources to help them find the resources that they're looking for. We also host field days. So just conservation districts that are partnered with us in implementing this program are required to host a field day at least once during the duration of the 3 years. So this also serves as like an in-person event for producers enrolled in the program to get together, talk about the different practices that they've tried. You know, our field specialists will also attend those field days, set up soil health demos. We try to attend conferences to talk about soil health. We also do include conference registration fees related to soil health as something that we can cost share with producers on. So if producers in our program want to attend conferences to learn more, that's something they can consider as well. something I didn't mention with the webinars is we're probably going to have some webinars that we title Conversations from the Field, where we invite producers to come talk about what kind of different practices they tried and kind of dive into the nitty-gritty of like, how did you implement it? What worked well? What didn't work well? What would you do differently next year if you're going to do this practice again? Stuff like that. And yeah, like I mentioned, we really are trying hard to build this community network for our producers. And we are not a restrictive program. So if other opportunities for producers come our way, we really want to be able to share these opportunities with them. So Sean, you mentioned earlier that you might be interested in recruiting producers for some field trials. That would be an awesome opportunity that we would love to share with our network. So things like that, we really want to offer a lot to our producers and see what they're interested in engaging with and seeing what kind of practices they implement and seeing what works for them. Okay, that was the end of my presentation. I feel like I really rushed through that. Just want to thank all of the many different supporters and partners we have. This program wouldn't be what it is without all of these groups supporting us. And with that, I'd just like to thank you guys for inviting me to this meeting and having me present. And if you are interested in learning more about the program, I will put this web link in the chat as well, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Lisa. That's a lot of great work. Awesome. So, I know that's a lot to take in. I know everybody's kind of like, whoa, what do I, oh, awesome.
Yeah, sorry.
I say awesome
I
a few more times.
that.
Julie has a question for you. So.
Yeah, hey, Lisa, I just wanted to get some clarification that your guys' contribution is up to $75 per acre. And I'm just trying to think through, and maybe other folks on the call can help me think through this a little bit. Like, I'm struggling with how far that gets you with compost application. And is that really a realistic, even if that's a 50-50 cost share, $150 an acre with the amount of compost required to cover an acre of grassland? Like, it feels like there's a little bit of a mismatch there. And so I'm wondering if you guys are seeing that, if you're hearing that from composters and producers, and how we get around that gap in the finances.
Yeah, definitely. The dollar amounts is probably one of the things that we get asked about the most. I didn't go super in depth with it, so I can definitely elaborate more on it. Yes, that $75 an acre rate determines how much a producer is eligible to receive back in reimbursements. So we have that $1,000 minimum, $5,000 maximum. So for example, if producer enrolls 10 acres, 10 times $75, 750, that's below the 1,000 minimum. So they just automatically get bumped up to the $1,000 minimum. For them to receive that $1,000, they have to spend $2,000. So that's the basic framework of the eligible amount. If producer enrolls 40 acres, 40 times 75, 3,000, they're eligible to get $3,000 back, but they have to spend $6,000 in expenses. And then it just kind of keeps climbing until you hit that maximum 5,000. To get that maximum 5,000, you have to enroll 67 plus acres. You have to spend $10,000. We definitely have producers who are grumpy about that amount of money. You know, for some producers, it's not enough money. For, you know, maybe mid-sized producers, it's just right. For really small acreage producers, it's also not enough money. That's something we're very keenly aware of. And we're definitely exploring, if we have future iterations of this program, different financial reimbursement models to kind of match better different operations. With that said, we do have kind of the whole spectrum of producers enrolled in our program. So our smallest producer is farming on 1/10 of an acre, and our largest producer enrolled over 12,000 acres. So for a lot of these folks, it's clearly not about the money, it's about the opportunity to get this technical assistance, whether it's through CDA with field specialists or being connected to other technical specialists about particular practices that are really drawing them into the program, not necessarily the financial aspect. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, that's helpful for context. Thanks.
All right. Anything else? Anyone else? Lots of information. This is a very, very packed meeting. So thanks all for hanging in on this. And Megan, your note taking is like verbatim. So it's like I'm gonna have to go back and read it to remind myself everything that's going on. So
I
it's
hope
great.
it's not too much, but yes.
No, thank you so much. You must be exhausted.
I honestly, this is how I take notes, because if I don't like kind of record what somebody says, it helps me just remember how the conversation went. So
fantastic. Great. Well, Lisa, thanks a bunch. Sean, why don't you take it away? 5-10 minutes max, and then we'll get into our last topic, which is meeting stuff and Dan stuff. So
Cool.
Thank you.
I was just, while I'm pulling up my screen, I was just thinking, I wonder if the Colorado Compost Council could do like a on-farm compost education series, because there was like mention of not having access in some parts of the state. I wonder if that's something we could do, and maybe it could be like a way for us to bring in some revenue too. If there was some money to support us doing something like that, then maybe we could, I don't know. So keep that in mind. Partnerships. So thank you for going first. That was perfect, because I'll just dive a little bit deeper into some of the soil amendments and kind of taking things a little bit further. So just to kind of give you guys a background, there's some new people on this call who don't know me. My name is Sean Bruckman. I used to run a compost facility in the mountains of Colorado. And when I left that position a few years ago, I really dove into soil health. So now I really kind of go deeper into looking at the soil, working with producers, and figuring out how we can get more, close the loop on our compost and get more organic matter in the soil. And so we do, at my company, The Ground Up, we do some consulting. We look at a lot of soils and compost under the microscope. We focus on the soil food web. And we make compost extracts and liquid solutions from solid compost. So just kind of giving an overview of soil health. Lisa gave a great summary for us of the programs that are happening in Colorado. And I think that's really important for us to know as composters who's out there and who wants to use our product, and to know the challenges. So just to remind us all that soil health, the definition of soil health, is the continued capacity of soil to function as a vital living ecosystem that sustains plants, animals, and humans. And that's really, really important, thinking about soil as a living, functioning system. So when we look at soil, there's physical, chemical, and biological characteristics of soil. Healthy soil should be about 25% air, 25% water, and about 50% minerals and organic matter. The organic matter in a healthy soil would be at least 5%, if not a little bit more, up to 10%. And that's where composters come in. That's where we have this awesome opportunity to really dive into this organic matter piece of soil. This is where all the life happens in the soil. It provides the shelter and the food for all of the living organisms that really do all of the great work in the soil. So that we call that the soil food web, or the biology in the soil. That's where all the magic happens. And it's these different trophic levels of microorganisms in the soil that really drive all of the functions in the soil that help to create that definition of soil health. So you kind of have your bacteria and your fungus. That's the primary decomposers that break things down. We have a lot of bacteria and fungus in commercial compost, typically a lot of bacteria. And then you get into your secondary decomposers, which are like protozoa, nematodes, small bugs, small microscopic bugs. And those are the things that eat the bacteria and cycle nutrients in the soil. So we really need to have that next trophic level of biology in the soil. And then you get into the bugs and the worms and the birds that eat the bugs and the worms, and they transport them further. And so it's really a big functioning system. And the plant roots secrete exudates to attract the biology. And then in return, the biology gives the plant root nutrients. So it's a whole cycle, and it's all driven by the sun, the water, and carbon dioxide, which is really valuable in this system. So we want carbon dioxide for the plants to be held in the soil. So carbon in the soil is good. Too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it's not so good. And the reason that we foster soil food web, if you're looking at it from a producer perspective of an agricultural producer or a food producer or animal producer, are really kind of like, we want more yields, more nutrient value. We want to reduce our inputs, suppress weeds, and helping to foster the soil food web or better biology in the soil can do that. Adding compost is a way to get there, or compost amendments. And then we talk a lot about soil aggregates, and that's really the key to soil health. And these are small particles of minerals and organic matter, and they're held together by those glues that are secreted by the plant roots and by the bugs that are driving all of these functions. So soil aggregates are really important, and we can learn a lot about soil health by looking at the aggregates. So kind of getting into why we are really important in this process, we as composters and compost amendment producers, is that we know, and there's lots of studies that show that compost and compost extracts can help reduce soil erosion, can help hold water, and can help increase yield and productivity. So just to give you a little bit more information about compost extracts. So a compost extract, or a compost tea, is a liquid solution of active microorganisms derived from compost, from healthy compost, and it's applied to the landscape. So sometimes when we look at applying on super large acreage, applying a solid compost is not as achievable as a liquid, but in my experience, having both is really, really nice. So you really want to get the organic matter up, and liquids are not going to put more organic matter in your soil. They will help drive the cycle of breaking down organic materials to make organic matter, but having a solid compost out there and then inoculating with a compost extract is really, really effective. So this picture on the right, it just shows you how beneficial it is to have a healthy soil food web compared to conventional fertilizer. So having compost and compost teas as opposed to conventional fertilizer just helps root growth, and that all that root growth and that soil sticking together is soil aggregates. So that's what we're trying to achieve with getting people more familiar with using compost and compost extracts. So the way that you make a compost extract is so through actively aerating compost. And so I think it's really, really important to note that this is not soaking compost in water and then spreading it out. It is an active aeration process. The entire vat of water has to be aerated, and any spots of anaerobic activity would be detrimental to the final product. So in the particular process that I use an extraction dome that has basically a giant tea bag on it, put it in a 250-gallon vat of water. We make sure we dechlorinate the water because we don't want to kill the microbes with the chlorinated water. And inside of that little tea bag is soil amendments, including compost and different amendments. And if it's a compost tea, you feed it so that you're multiplying the organisms. And if it's extract, you don't feed it. You're just extracting the biology that's in. You get a more representative sample of the compost. So it depends on what your final goal is. So here's different ways that different tools that people might use to make and apply compost extracts. There's all different kinds of brewing machines and different types of application methods. So it's great for golf courses. You can use an electric golf cart and really reduce your climate footprint if you have like municipal spaces and county parks. You can put a tank on the back of a four-wheel, like a side-by-side, or to get onto agricultural fields, or you can just put a tank on a truck and get into some spaces that way as well. Or backpack sprayers if you have a really concentrated brew. So there's different ways to apply. You can do root feeding near tree roots, and doing like a fungally dominated extract is really nice for trees and shrubs. You can just apply with a hose, or you can put it right into agricultural systems. So kind of getting over that barrier of application and transportation. This is a great way to kind of get there. And so we've pumped it directly into the big gun systems, and we've also put it into flood irrigation ditches. A couple really good big points are that cleanliness matters. It's really, 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 really important that you clean all of your equipment every single time. We do not want anaerobic biofilms to add up, and we don't use our equipment for fertilizer or chemicals or pesticides or anything else. So if somebody wants to get into this, that's really important. Also, compost quality really, really, really matters. And we look at that under the microscope. So if any composters are interested in getting their products looked at under a microscope, we offer that service, and we can see the different functional groups in the soil and make sure that they're there. And we've also been dabbling into inoculating commercial compost too, because you guys as big compost producers are making a large amount of product. We're making a very small amount of a very high quality product. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to work with these liquid extracts to do some experiments, and I'm open to anybody who wants to talk about that as well. So I will stop because we have a lot more to talk about. And I think that's kind of my quick overview. There's a lot of questions about it, and I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page when we're talking about compost tea, that it is an aerated product that is really, really, really focused on cleanliness and focused on quality of the inputs. I use vermiculture and Johnson Sioux bioreactors and BioComplete, and I've dabbled in all of the different types of inputs, and maybe that's another talk for another day.
Indeed. Wow. That's a lot. We've had a packed meeting. This is pretty amazing. Thank you very much, Sean, for that presentation. And it would be lovely, by the way, if Sean and Lisa, you wouldn't mind just emailing me and Jamie your slide decks, and we can, get those out to the membership if they want them. So cool. All right. Well, there's not a ton of time for questions, but if there are any questions for Sean, let's take them now before we wrap it up. Everybody's still alive and well out there. It's been a long haul. All right. Well, thanks all. The last thing really on the agenda then is just to remind everyone that our next quarterly meeting of this full Colorado Composting Council group is on November 19th, same time, 2 to 4. We'll be gathering topics and agenda items for that along the way. And it sounds like we all have kind of a lot of little subcommittee type projects to start working out on between now and then as well. So Jamie and I are going to have to talk a little bit about that, as well as the other folks that are interested in managing those committees, because as Jamie mentioned, we're all super busy and we need to figure out how we can kind of divide and conquer a lot of these different great ideas that are coming up. So that said, I also wanted to mention that we all remember our good friend Dan, who has gone off down the road to retirement. Some of us have been in our smaller leadership team group that we meet with every month have talked about doing a little kind of party for him, probably at his place. He doesn't know that yet. Because we want to bring him some, once he's settled back into, you know, his farming life in his farm that he lives in and owns, we're gonna, you know, roll out there with a truck full of compost and some beers and just, you know, spread some compost for him on his farm and have some beers and stuff. So to be determined when that happens exactly. Is probably be late September, maybe early October. We'll let him decide when he wants his compost to be spread. And go from there. But then also just FYI, I know EcoCycle is also planning an event for him. Details TBD on that. I did chat with them earlier about it, and they're getting ready to kind of send out an invitation. But if anybody's interested in being part of it, it'll probably be more locally here around the Boulder area. And you can just send an email to recycle@ecocycle.org if you're interested in attending Dan's event, and they'll be happy to send you the invitation. So that's, again, recycle@ecocycle.org. And we will try to celebrate Dan as much as we can, both as a COCC and as the broader EcoCycle group as well. So,
Sandy, there is a date for that. It's September 5th.
I got a text message from Marty 2 minutes before this meeting saying that they might be changing the date. So,
this is Jeff from EcoCycle. I believe they are changing the date. I just read that before the meeting. So
got it. Okay. All right. So yeah, so we're not quite sure yet. Things are changing, but yes. Oh yeah, good point, Julie. Cool. All right. Well, anybody that has to jump. We made it to the end, and that was just a lot. But if anybody else has anything else they want to add for the good of the group, please speak now or hold it until next time. Okay. It's been amazing. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Good job, Jamie. Good job, Sandy.
Thanks. Good job, Megan, too. Appreciate it. Right.
Anytime. Thanks.
Take care, everyone. Bye
Thanks,
now.
everyone.